Hey everybody, Mr. Judson here. So let's see, it's Friday, we're doing our second day of review and exam on Tuesday, right? So one of the things that I can do to kind of help our exam go a little bit quicker is, when I give you information, instead of saying evaluate all 6 trig functions, I could just ask for one of them. All right, you don't know which one I'm going to ask for, but that's one way I can kind of speed things up a little bit. All right, so we know that the sine of theta is equal to a negative 3/7, and theta is in quadrant 3. And so based on that, we want to figure out what the secant of theta is. All right, you guys go ahead and try it. All right, so I can think of 2 ways to do this. The first way is if I was to draw a triangle in the third quadrant, and we'll put it right here. Remember, one side is always on the x-axis. Theta is our reference angle. I'll just go ahead and put it there. And I know that sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so since that's a negative y value, I'll put the negative 3 there and the 7 there. Hypotenuse is always positive. Always, okay? All right, so I need to find the missing side here, so I'm going to have to do some Pythagorean Theorem. So let me do that off to the side. That's my x value, so we'll say x squared plus negative 3 squared is 9. That would equal 7 squared, which is 49. So x squared equals 40. When I move that 9 over and subtract it, and then I'll take the square root of 40, which is 4 times 10. And the square root of 4 is 2, so I get 2 root 10 for that side right there. And it's got to be negative because it's a negative x value. Okay? All right, so now I just want the secant. Well, I know the secant is the reciprocal of the cosine. So if the cosine of theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse, then the secant of theta would equal the reciprocal of that. So a negative 7 over 2 root 10. Okay, again, it doesn't matter where the negative sign is. I just always put it in the numerator. So now I need to rationalize that. And so that's going to be a negative 7 root 10. When I multiply that by root 10, I get 10 times 2, that's 20. There's my answer right there. Okay, so that's one way to do the problem. The other way I could do this is I could think to myself, if I could find the cosine, I just have to flip it over, right? And we had this this rule that says sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta equals 1. So if I put a negative 3/7 in here and squared it, that would be 9 over 49 plus a cosine squared theta equals 1. So this is a graphical approach here. This is more of an algebraic approach. And so I want to move this 9 over 49 to the other side and subtract it. So cosine squared theta would equal 1, we'll just call that 49 over 49 so that I've got a common denominator, minus 9 over 49. And so when I subtract that, I would get 40 over 49. Cosine squared theta equals that, and now I just have to take the square root of it. So you start to see some of the numbers, showing up here that we saw. So let's see, I'd say the cosine of theta would equal plus or minus the square root of 40 over 49. Now, the reason I wrote plus or minus is because sometimes the cosine is positive and sometimes it's negative. In this case, we're in the third quadrant, so we know it's the negative answer that we want. All right? Remember that ACT? Only the tangent is positive in the third quadrant. So cosine has to be negative. So let's see, this is going to be a negative square root of 49 is 7. Square root of this would be square root 40, which is 2 root 10. And that's the cosine, so now I got to flip that over. Right? So the secant of theta is equal to the reciprocal of that, a negative 7 over 2 root 10, which is what I had right there. And so now if I rationalize it, I just get the negative 7 root 10 over 20. So I'm just going to stop there. All right, let's try another one. All right, so this time it says the terminal side of an angle hits the point negative 2 comma 5. And what they want us to do is find the secant of theta and the tangent of theta. You guys go ahead and try it. All right, so if I plot that point, again, if I'm not sure what to do, let's just draw a picture. So here's my xy axis. What I want to do is go negative 2 and then up 5, so right about there. Negative 2 comma 5. And there's my triangle, always on the x-axis, reference angle right there at the origin. Okay, this is really the angle, but we need that right triangle to do our work. Okay, so we just refer to that as the reference angle, and the secant and tangent of that angle is the same as the secant and tangent of this angle. All right, so my x-coordinate is negative 2, my y-coordinate is 5. So I have to do Pythagorean Theorem, figure out what this is. So remember how I told you guys you start to develop shortcuts? I know I'm going to do this side squared plus that side squared. So 25 plus 4, that's 29, and then take the square root of it. And now I should be able to answer the two questions. So the secant of theta, I know the cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Secant, you want the reciprocal, so we'll do hypotenuse over adjacent. So that'll be a negative root 29 over 2. Right? Positive divided by a negative is negative. Again, we don't care where the negative sign is. I'm just always going to put it in the numerator. And then the tangent of theta, that's going to be opposite over adjacent, so that's a negative 5 halves. There's my two answers. All right, let's try another one. All right, so for this one, they're asking us to find the reference angle for each of these. So we got to remember what our definition of a reference angle is. It's an acute angle, so smaller than 90 degrees, that lies on the x-axis. Okay, an acute angle where one side lies on the x-axis. You guys see if you can answer. This one we'll do in degrees. This one we should do in radians. Okay, and this is important. On the test, anytime we're given something in radians, the expectation is that we go ahead and do that in radians. All right, so that's one of those things I'll look for as I'm correcting. All right, so I think to do this, the first thing I want to do is I want to get a visual. I want to see where this angle is and then decide what to do. So here's my xy axis, a 297 degree angle. It starts right here. So remember, we're not talking about ships or boats, just an angle, so we got to start on the x-axis. And we go counterclockwise. So there's 90, 180, 270. So I'm somewhere here in the fourth quadrant. 297 degrees. I don't know if I drew it in the right spot, but I know I'm in the fourth quadrant. So my reference angle is going to be this angle right here. Okay, that's the one that touches the x-axis and it's at the origin. So if I just went 297 degrees, now remember I told you guys when you do this, there's not just one set method. You really have to look at the picture and think your way through it. So I'm just thinking, how much farther is it to 360? That's a subtraction problem, right? I'm going to do 360 minus 297. And let's see, what is that, 63 degrees? There's my reference angle. All right, the next one, we're talking radians, so this is a little more difficult. This is the way my mind works. I look at this and I see 10 pi over 5 plus 3 pi over 5. That's 2 pi, that's one complete revolution around, right? Plus a little bit more. So when I graph this, here's my xy axis. I'm starting right here. I'm going to go all the way around once. That's 2 pi radians. And now I have to go 3 pi over 5. Well, 5 doesn't convert into twelfths. So I got to think a little bit harder with this. If that was 2.5 pi over 5, that'd be the same as pi over 2, right? Halfway to pi. I've gone a little bit more than halfway. Now, if you want to, you could convert this to a decimal number. See what it is as a decimal. Remember, this is 1.57 radians to right here. It's 3.14 to here. But I just look at this and I think, okay, halfway to pi would be 2.5 pi over 5. I've gone more than halfway, so I don't know exactly where I'm at, but I'm somewhere in the second quadrant. My reference angle has to touch the x-axis. That's what I'm looking for right there. Well, let's see. How much farther is it to... Forget this. We're done with that. So I went around once. I'm really just focused on this right now. If that's 3 pi over 5, how much farther is it to pi? We're back to a subtraction problem, right? So pi minus 3 pi over 5. I just need a common denominator. So 5 pi minus 3 pi, that's 2 pi over 5. That's this angle right here. That's my reference angle. All right, let's try another one. All right, so then we started getting into some inverse trig functions, right? Arc sine, arc cosine, arc tangent. What we want to remember is this is just an angle right here. We're doing the tangent of an angle. Anytime you have a normal trig function, you can only take sine or tangent or cosine of an angle. So that's the only thing that can go here. This has to equal an angle. Okay? So I think when we did these, we started off by saying, let's just assume this is the angle theta, so that the cosine of theta is equal to 3/5. And we use that to build a triangle, and then figure out what the tangent of theta is. Okay? You guys go ahead and try this. Alright, so I'm going to draw my picture over here. Remember, arc cosine can only be in the first and second quadrant. That's where my x values are positive and negative. And since it's positive, it means we're in the first quadrant. So I'm going to draw a triangle like this. There's theta. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that would be 3 and 5. And you go, aha, it's a 3, 4, 5 triangle, right? One of those triples. You can check it real quick. Square this, you get 9. Square that, you get 16. Add them together, you get 25. Square root of that's 5. Okay, so that works. So now what's the tangent of that angle? Well, we know tangent is opposite over adjacent. So tangent of theta is equal to 4/3. There's my answer. All right, let me get you guys another one to try. All right, you guys try this one on your own. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say this is just some angle theta, so that the tangent of theta is equal to 4/7. You know, this question is really like one we just did a little while ago where we said, you know, like if the tangent of theta equals this, then what's the secant of theta? We just have to draw a triangle and figure that out. All right, so here's my triangle. Let's see, arctangent can only be in first and fourth. It's positive here, negative here, so we must be in the first quadrant. So here's my triangle. There's theta. We know that tangent is opposite over adjacent. And now we have to do Pythagorean Theorem to figure out what the hypotenuse is. So a squared plus b squared, that's 49 plus 16. Let's go off to the side here. 49 plus 16 equals hypotenuse squared. Add those, you would get 65. Take the square root. I don't believe that simplifies. 65 is 5 times 13, and neither one of those will break down any farther. So square root 65. So now we want the secant of that angle. So the secant of theta, that's going to be the reciprocal of the cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so I want hypotenuse over adjacent. I don't know about you guys, but when I do that, when I go hypotenuse over adjacent, the first thing that goes in my head is, oh good, I don't have to rationalize, because I don't have a square root in the denominator. So we're done right there. That's our answer. All right, let's try another one. All right, so we also did a few things with story problems. So let's see, here we've got a traffic camera that's set up right here at an intersection. Seems to be going through this block, so apparently there's nothing in the way. But the question is, what distance should the focus be set at to avoid a blurry picture? What distance should it be set at? Okay, see if you can figure that out. All right, so to me it looks like they're really asking about this distance right here. And based on the picture drawn, I'm not even sure if that works because the car is going to be right here, a little bit past that. So I guess maybe our answer is going to be, it needs to be a little bit more than whatever x is. Okay? So looking at that, I would just say, okay, this is a right angle. I've got the adjacent side here. I'm looking for the hypotenuse, so that sounds like cosine, right? Think SOHCAHTOA. And you guys, it's okay to write this all over your test. SOHCAHTOA. You know, which one uses adjacent and hypotenuse? All right, that's the trig function I'm working with, cosine. All right, so I would say that the cosine of 42 degrees is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, 30 over x. So now to solve that, I'll bring the x over here. And then to get x by itself, I'll bring the cosine of 42 back and divide by that. So I get x equals 30 divided by cosine 42. All right, I'm going to need a calculator for this. So let's see, first thing I want to do is double check the mode. What mode is my calculator in? I got to know. Okay, I'm in degree mode. That's what I want right here, so we're good. Okay, so I want to do, let's see, get out of there. I want 30 divided by cosine 42. There it is, 40.369 feet. Okay, my original distance here was in feet, so I want this to be in feet as well. So let's see, 40.369. So the focus should be set at a little bit more than this. And the thing that I think, about an answer like this is, I see the 40.369, so I know you did the trig right. The fact that you're saying a little bit more means you're acknowledging that the car is not moving down the sidewalk, right? That's not a good thing. And so that's a good, clear answer at the end. All right, you guys, that's what we have for today. So let me get you a homework assignment. All right, so you might just want to take a picture of this on your screen. That way you've got everything right there, as opposed to having to write the whole thing down and then copy it over again later. I went through and just tried to pick, God, there's a lot of problems here, you guys. I didn't want to do something like 47 all the way to 135 odd. That would take a long time. So I went through and just tried to pick, these are good examples of the things that we need to know. I skipped all the graphing. We already talked about that. Things that we didn't cover because of graphing, that we'll cover later, I skipped that as well. But I think if you do these, you'll have a pretty good feel for what kind of questions are going to be on the test. We will also have an opportunity to ask questions about this Tuesday morning. Okay. So remember, the one thing that I need from you guys, I haven't heard from very many people yet. I still need to know, when are you taking the test? Are you doing it in class or are you doing it at 6:30 at night? Okay, it's just one of those two options. Those who are in cohort A, you guys will be doing it in class. Okay, if your last name starts before L, A to L, you'll be taking the test in class. The rest of the people, you're either doing it at home during class time or in the evening at 6:30. It depends on when your parents are available to keep an eye on things. Okay. All right, so if you could let me know, I'd appreciate that. Other than that, I will talk to you guys later. All right, take care, stay safe.